There was a big Iowa summit of the religious right that a number of 2024 Republican hopefuls were speaking at. Trump spoke there by video link. And, it's interesting because he has taken a lot of heat from the activists, the anti-abortion activist wing of the party, because he's basically, ruled out a national ban. He's been very clear that he wants to keep things at the state-by-state level. There have been all sorts of reports out about his private comments basically being like, listen, we got to not talk about this issue because this is a disaster for us. It appears that he understood that as soon as the Dobbs decision came down. Maybe more than anyone else, he got immediately how this was going to upend the political landscape and be a really big problem for Republicans. So there have been all sorts of quotes coming out from anti-abortion activists about just how upset with Trump they are right now, even though, of course, he's the person who put those justices on the court that made that Dobbs decision overturning Roe versus Wade. So Trump spoke at this summit, and he was trying to remind them of, what he has done for the pro-life movement to try to calm the waters there. Take a listen to a little bit of what he had to say.
You take a look at the right to life issue. So I put on 3 Supreme Court judges, over 300 judges. Our whole court system is different than it was. Look at the Ninth Circuit, but just so different than what it was. It's 3 great Supreme Court judges, and because justices, and because of the fact that I did that, you have a whole new world out there. And, very few people have done what I've done, and very few administrations have made the impact that the Trump administration made.
Saagar, how do you think that those comments will land with this group?
I'm just not sure. I mean, I think the case he's trying to make is, I did it before, I'm your best bet. If anything, I think this is tough. You almost have to make an electability argument to evangelicals who don't necessarily believe in electability or never really have. So you have to say, look, guys, I'm the guy who got it done. I'm the greatest hero in the history of the pro-life movement. But also, you got to know where to stop, and you also need to have one of your guys in the White House. So at the end of the day, you got to stick with me, because I'm somebody who will get it at the best I possibly can without suffering the electoral disaster. Yeah. That's kind of how I read it.
To be honest with you, even though, listen, there will be some small percentage of really ideological activists that, prefer Mike Pence, for example. And we're going to talk about some of his comments on the same issue. I mean, he really has sort of positioned himself as the traditional religious right candidate. He immediately came out in favor of a national abortion ban after Dobbs came down. So you'll have some small percentage that, this is truly their issue, they're truly committed to it, and they go with a candidate like Mike Pence or someone else who is more to their liking on the issue. But we saw evangelical voters sort of twist their previous positions into knots to support President Trump back in 2016. It used to be very core to that group that, the personal values and personal morality and personal religiosity of the candidate was really important. And obviously, Trump didn't have all of those pieces for them, and they still figured out a way to justify supporting him. So even the evangelical right has been Trump's strongest and most consistent base since he took office. I don't think that that's going to change, even if he isn't exactly where they would prefer him to be on the issue of abortion. I think that they will justify to themselves exactly the way Trump is justifying to them of he's the guy who actually got it done. So, of course, we're going to be behind him, and, of course, we're going to support him.
It all comes back to how they will actually look at issues and electability. Let's put the next one up there on the screen, because this is important. Pence says he wants to see the entire pill, quote, off the market. I'm talking about the abortion pill, mifepristone here, and also has come out for that national abortion ban. The real question is that how many people actually believe in the issues? How many people believe in some sort of gradation? He's got 6% right now in a national GOP primary. Not great, but that's about exactly right for people who are full on for a national abortion ban.
Who this is their issue.
This is my issue, as opposed to this is issue number 3. I care about it, but not willing to go all the way for it. So, I think we're actually seeing a lot of this in our polling data about how people show their preferences. Yeah,
so put this next piece up on the screen. This is the polling. Abortion has become really a top issue for the electorate. 61% of the electorate say that it is an 8, 9, or 10 in terms of importance. So they ask them, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is this issue actually for you? And that's a very it's a very good way of doing polling, because a lot of times people will say like, oh yeah, I care about this or I care about that, but they don't really, and they don't really vote on it. But you have 43% of voters saying it's actually a 10 for them. Like, this is so important to them. And I think that's been borne out by the election results that we've seen. I mean, just recently in Wisconsin, the ultimate swing state, you had a liberal potential state Supreme Court justice who ultimately wins because she leaned into the issue of abortion. And she won by more than 10 points. It wasn't even close. So you see the way that this has completely upended our politics in a way that I truly didn't necessarily anticipate. So this has become central, and it has truly exposed a divide within the Republican Party, too. They are scrambling to figure out what is their position, how are they going to deal with this. That 6% or so for whom this is their number one issue, they have always punched above their weight electorally, especially within the Republican base, because they are highly organized. And so it's been a very important key block to affiliate yourself with. And prior to Roe being overturned, it was very easy for candidates to do that because, number one, they could pass something at the national level, and they did pass some, theoretical bans at the national level, and there were no stakes because it wasn't real. It wasn't actually going to change the landscape of abortion in most places across the country. So it was enough to just, like Trump, be, in favor of overturning Roe versus Wade, and you didn't have to say a lot more than that. Yeah. But now that you're sort of having to outline the specifics of, okay, how far do we go, it has exposed a lot of problems.
I actually think that the 9 out of 10, the 8 to 9 out of 10 for a lot of voters, that's the greatest defeat for the pro-life movement, because for a long time, pro-lifers they're not that many of them, but it was their number one issue or number two, and now to make it so that now is the number one or number two issue for people who are against you, that's kind of their apathy based on the status quo is kind of what was letting them float, in terms of their electoral importance. But if you're going to go head to head, you're obviously going to lose. I mean, I always thought that. I didn't think it would ever go to a 9 or a 10. In general, I always thought the economic issues would count. But, look, it's clear, like, you really don't want to screw with existing things. And I think that's it's a tough thing for people to wrap their heads around. Like, if you go back and look at Obamacare, like, everyone hated the American healthcare system. But by not, like, really fully fixing it and just kind of trying to tweak, you made it actually way worse. And by screwing with existing people's healthcare and then not also even really delivering a lot of upside to the people who don't have healthcare, you got the worst of all worlds. I kind of look at it this almost the same way, where, whenever you have a system that was largely in place, people were mostly cool and were fine with it, and you take that away, people are going to get really upset.
A sense of loss is a very powerful political force.
That's true.
This is a lot of actually what animates the Republican base is a sense of loss, a sense of loss of cultural position, a sense of loss of, the vitality of their towns, et cetera. And so I think, this has created a real sense of loss of rights that people thought they could take for granted among a large portion of the electorate. So it has become highly motivating. And you're right that it used to be that energy was on the other side. That, you had the numbers where a sort of slim majority would think of themselves as pro-choice. Most people were never in the camp of we want to ban all abortion at all times or with very, very limited exceptions. But now that group has become very highly motivated, and it has completely shifted the dynamics of this issue and who has the upper hand here.
No, absolutely. It's one of those where it opened up a Pandora's box that, and I will say, at least to our credit, we did often say that, in the months before, said, hey, in June, this case is coming. We don't know what's going to happen. Now, in terms of the way that it showed up in the polling and all that, certainly, was not, weren't able to predict. But, like, the idea of a Pandora's box being open was certainly, I think, one that we tried to flag here for many months and, almost a year out before it eventually dropped. So there you go. Pat myself on the back.
Hey, guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now. And Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us. And if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.